Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Creating a Legacy podcast. I am your host Talia, and I am so happy that you guys have joined us another week. It is Monday. For me, I'm recording on a Monday, but whatever day you're listening to this, whatever time, what's up, how's it going, how was your Easter? If I was in Barbados right now, it would be Easter Monday, and we actually get the Monday off, but here in Ontario that does not happen, so today was a work day for me. But fortunately, we took the week off last week. That's why there was no episode. So Created by Talia was closed last week, and that was a much needed break. I really appreciated having that time off, and it was some time that my husband and I spent, and we hadn't been able to do that in quite some time. I think a year and a half, truly unwind, just the two of us. So it was amazing. Definitely needed on many fronts, but we're back and we're energized and we're ready to grind. And as you guys know, once you see April and Easter is over, the next thing that is coming out is Mother's Day. So we are working on that. We're working fervently on getting our Mother's Day products out. So we would have had a couple of ideas of what we were going to do already, especially since Legacy is still very young. Legacy is only a month old, so a lot of the products that are going to be around that would still be the ones that are currently out, but just tailoring it to Mother's Day. And then with Creative being custom, it's just deciding which of our custom products we're gonna really push during that time. And Kingdom already has a collab going on with Miss Yellow, so I don't think there might be too much there. Maybe we'll launch another spring piece, who knows. You guys can let us know if there's anything new you want in Kingdom, but that's pretty much what's been happening, and that's a lot for sure. I mean, with any young business, there's definitely a lot to do, especially if you are the owner and the employee and the accountant and the photographer and the marketer and all the others and all the other tasks. And that's pretty much what happens here. So to do that by one was a lot, but doing it by three, it's definitely been interesting, but interesting in a good way. I'm actually really enjoying it. I really definitely feel fulfilled. So yeah, that's update for me. Easter was great on my end as well. For us, once we were back, it was just a case of going to church, and church was amazing. The worship was on fire. It was great. It was amazing. So yeah, that is what happened. And today is an interesting topic. I've touched on names before, especially when we were doing the writing the vision episode. So that would be episode 2, starting a legacy, writing a vision. And we would have touched on how critical it is to write down that vision, and also making sure that you start to look into what your name is and stuff like that. And I kind of want to expand on that a little bit more. As I have told you guys, everything that I discuss on this podcast is either something that I have been through, or something that I'm going through, or something that I've just learned in some other way. And yeah, so today we're actually going to start to touch on branding. And the reason that we're touching on this now, I mean, as you can tell from how the episodes are going, I'm trying to be a little bit chronological with how I roll out the information, because we are going through the process of creating a legacy. And as I would have discussed in previous episodes, we not only want to go through that process with you, but we'll eventually also have other feedback from other people that are going through the same process, so that you get multiple experiences, so that you really understand that process of starting your business and starting it the Kingdom way. So with us, we would have started Created by Talia in 2019, and we did a really fast launch schedule. I'm very goal oriented. In case that hasn't come across, I'm very goal oriented, and that was very evident in the schedule that we laid out for Created. So I think, if I recall correctly, the schedule was like 20 days long. So basically, after having that initial discussion that we're going to start this business, and after doing the registration and stuff like that, it was just like go get marketing, get this, get that, figure out branding, write contracts, all these different things. But a very critical point in determining when that schedule started was the business name. My name is Talia, and it is a pretty unique name. I think I can count on my fingers the amount of times I've actually heard that name, far less the spelling that I have. So my spelling, I have an H before my first A. There's a lot of other variants, some without an H, there's some with an H after the A, but my spelling, to me, it is pretty rare. The most influential person that I know that has it, apart from the person who my parents would have seen with the name first, is, I think she's a Latina or something, but she's a singer. So, but apart from that, like, I haven't really seen my name too much. It might be getting a little bit more popular now. I don't know, but having that uniqueness, I was really happy about that. I knew that I couldn't just use Talia because that already is a brand taken by an artist, but it's still my name, and I still wanted to incorporate it somehow, and Created by Talia was born, especially since the Created by emphasized the fact that we were creating the products. So the things that Created makes are handmade, and there's that custom element. Everything, we're all about making things custom for you, and so that Created by was a great way of defining the purpose of the business, and that is pretty much my point today, making sure that whatever name you have aligns with the purpose of the business. So you don't want to be doing anything that doesn't really tell what you're offering, because then you're not really portraying the identity of your company well. And so that's pretty much what I want to touch on. But not only that, I want to start touching, because I'm not sure if I'll get through all of it today, but I want to also start touching on some of the things that you can encounter when you are trying to come up with that name. Because let's be honest, you can have an amazing business name, but then you go and you search it and you think that is unique, and you find out, hey, other people thought about this could be a problem. Yeah, and I have had my share of that as well, not with Created, but with one of the other companies, and I'll get into that a little bit more. So, if you guys haven't figured out by now, we look at things the biblical way, and so there's always going to be some sort of Bible that comes out, because we are building kingdom businesses. And so I wanted to start at the beginning, literally, with Genesis. As we know, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But we would have seen in Genesis how God went about things. We know that we are created in God's image, and God is a God that speaks things into existence. We know they say in the Bible that there's life and death in the power of the tongue. We know how critical it is in terms of speaking things. Like the word says, decree a thing and it will be established. We have that understanding of how important the word is, speaking things is. And we would see, as we go through Genesis 1 and 2, we will see how God did the same thing. as he was speaking things into existence, he also gave them names. And it is, you can even see that from verse 5. And God called the light day and the darkness night. And like, he started to give things names as they were made. And we see that followed through all the way down. God called the dry land earth, and he called the water seas. There is that importance in naming something. And when you look into it further, you see that naming something gives it purpose. And it is the same thing with your business. The name that you give your business highlights the purpose of it. So you have to make sure that whatever name you give is not just, you have to like the name, like it's something that you most likely will keep forever. I mean, there's a process of rebranding and renaming, there's that, but I believe everyone goes into a business thinking that that's the name that they're going to carry straight through, and it shows how important it is to get it right, because this is the identity that is going to be followed through for your business. The person is not going to refer you, most likely at least, as this is so and so's business. They're going to say this is this business. I got this from this place. You know what I mean? And so it's important to really have a name that is strong and aligns with the purpose of the business. And so as we continue through Genesis, like, we see everything that God has done, and he creates man and everything like that. And then we go on to verse 2. And now Adam is given his task. And what is Adam's task? What was one of the first things that Adam does? He names the animals. Like, it is reinforced again how critical it is for each entity to have a name. And so with that, let's look at how important it is to have the strength in the name. So when we look at the story of Jabez in 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verse 9 to 10, I'm going to read it from the Amplified Version. So it says, Jabez was more honorable than his brothers, but his mother named him Jabez, saying, because I gave birth to him in pain. That's a rough name, you know? It's like, wow, like, seriously, like, so by default, anyone that knows the meaning of his name is going to identify him as being associated with that pain. And you don't want your business to have that. You don't want a case of mistaken identity with your business, because it can be a deterrent. It can be a deterrent for sure. But fortunately, Jabez was able to cry out to God and ask for that change in terms of him asking if he would bless him and enlarge his territory, and God granted him that request. But it is the case of us not necessarily having to go through that whole process if we do things right from the beginning. And so it is important that at your beginning that you take time to pray about your business name and to really make sure that this is what it's supposed to be, and to do the necessary research. One of the ways that you can do this, like right off the bat, is doing a quick Google search. I think we all have seen how useful Google is as a search engine, and with Google My Business being in existence, it has taken things to a whole nother level, because now your business is searchable. People are able to leave reviews, like people are able to find directions easily, all of that stuff. Like, it really has changed the game, and I really find it to be a useful tool. So you can, especially if someone has already registered their business on their Google My Business, you can easily right off the bat see, okay, hey, this business name as this, or even just from the Google search, you can start to see domains that are already in existence, because some websites will start to pop up. And even if it's a case that maybe the person only has an Instagram or something like that, you start to see Facebook and Instagrams and all that are associated with those keywords that you have put as part of your business name available. So that's one of the easiest ways that you can figure out if your business name is taken or not. The next thing that you'll probably want to do, especially if you're doing like an incorporation, if you're going to that level that quickly, you'll want to do a nuance report. So actually today I would have done one, like because legacy was a dream, or let me just put it this way, legacy was a vision that came into being, yes, in March, but it was a vision from last year. There was a lot of things that was happening in my life, and God really started to talk to me about certain things, and I had started created with the intention of creating a legacy. That is why you can see that is our slogan: creating a legacy, creative Italia. That was one of the foundational principles of Creative Italia starting. But then there was also that desire to take it further and give something to our children and start that before they're here, so that when they are here, it is easy to immerse them in it and grow it with them and make it into their identity. That's essentially what Legacy 3 is supposed to be like. So I knew the name. Like I heard the name, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is what it's going to be. And initially we would have done a search on Whopper, and we would have seen there was different legacy businesses, but it was finding the right arrangement as well to align with what already existed. Unfortunately, we were able to find Legacy 3 apparel, and when we did our nuance report, there's no Legacy 3 apparel. So ta-da, here we are. With Kingdom Life was started in 2020, January 2020. So Creative Italia started August 2019, and then after we started printing shirts, my husband and I had a discussion, and we really started thinking about how we could take it to a new level. And our discussion led us to Kingdom Life, where we would create a brand, a Christian brand. I know, yes, there are Christian brands that exist, but a Christian brand that was like focused on wrapping the kingdom. The concept of the kingdom was still very new to me. Yes, I grew up in church and all that, but like really understanding the concept of seeking the kingdom first, as Matthew 6:33 says, seek ye first the kingdom of God, all these things shall be added. I never really understood the concept before, but in the process of dating my husband, I actually really started to learn a lot about that. My husband has been kingdom minded from the beginning, and he taught me a lot of how important it was to seek the kingdom. And it's only like maybe in the past couple of years as well that I started to notice that some of the teachings started to align with that as well, and that was very very instrumental for me to see that, okay, this new concept is now being taught in other churches and so on, but there still really isn't that full discussion or constant discussion of the kingdom, and we wanted to be a part of that. We wanted to be a driver of that message. And I think everyone loves swag. Who does not love swag? And so we're like, what is the best way that we can communicate this message? Hey, why not do this? And so that's how Kingdom was started. And it's not that every single design that we have just says something about the kingdom, but it captures the whole essence of Christian apparel and spreading the gospel and so on. So having that being around for 2 years now, we've definitely had more room to grow, but created was the key business. And so it was started as a brand under Created, so it was still Created by Talia. It was just a brand name that was under the Created by Talia umbrella. Having gone full-time last year, it gave me more room to start really pushing the businesses and looking into growth the way that we had envisioned it for a while, but we just did not have the time to do it. Like, realistically, with my career and a new marriage and all these different things, like, it's just a lot. It's just a lot. There's just a lot to deal with. And it's only when we went full time that it's like, okay, I can really start to focus on Created and focus on this brand. And in January 2022, we decided, okay, you know what, we'll actually pull this out from under the Created umbrella, not completely as in is like completely disassociated, because all the businesses that we have are divisions of Created by Talia, but start to make it function as its own entity. So we would have stopped marketing it as much under Created by Talia, so that page will just have the Created by Talia identity, and then we give it its own Instagram, we give it its own Facebook, and we started the process of trying to make it its own separate entity. What did not happen, especially because Kingdom Life was still under Created, is it being registered separately. Because again, it was just under Created. So now that we're going through this process of trying to do everything and all of that stuff, we're now seeing that, and remember, I told you guys I'm going to be very transparent on this podcast. Everything that I learned, I'm going to share with you, so that you don't have to go through the things that we are going through. So now that we're going through that process, we realize, hey, this name is in other places. Now, when Kingdom Life started, there was another Kingdom Life, because like, why would I start something knowing that another name exists? I'm not like, why go through unnecessary stress? That's a lot. But here we are now, trying to go through this thing and make sure that we do things the right way, because we believe in our product, we believe in growth, we believe in expansion and all that, and we trust the visions that God gave us. So we want to do things the right way, and we want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in any compromising position to compromise what God has given us, you know. And so we're doing the search. In Canada, the name is not taken, but outside of Canada, it is. And this is the importance of trademarking. It is not cheap. So a lot of us wouldn't do it right off the bat. It's only when we start to get a substantial growth that you're like, okay, I'm going to trademark the name, whatever. But if there was anything that showed me how important it is to trademark, it was going through this. I was in shambles. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I was in shambles, because Kingdom Life, it meant so much. It meant so much to us. Like, I knew where Kingdom Life came from. I knew the place that I had in my heart. And to see, I mean, like, once again, like, in terms of Canada, it being a business in Canada, that I have no problem there. It's fine as a Canadian company. But when, especially from my perspective, when I'm starting something, I'm not thinking that it's just going to stay small. I am thinking about 8 years down the road, and I want to make sure that it is set up in a way that it can grow and expand freely. Don't need stress. Stress is not for me. No. So to see that there was that potential, for and you know what, like there's nothing that God cannot do. There's nothing that God cannot do, and I'm extremely confident in the name that we have, especially because I knew of how it came about and everything like that. I knew about the vision, and we worked to make it plain, but there were some steps that were missed that were critical, especially for something like clothing. And that's a whole nother ballgame. We'll discuss that a little bit more, and I'll go into that as I learn more myself, especially since a good set of what we do is printing on clothing, and especially since the two daughter companies, I'm gonna call them two because they're still very young, especially since they're both clothing related. There's definitely a lot that we're learning there, and we'll continue to share that as this podcast goes along. But yeah, it was a huge blow. It was a huge blow, and at the same time, like, you know, you're starting this business, you're pouring so much funds into it. It's like, okay, like what can you hold off on for a little bit, and what you should go ahead with, like all these different things, like for example, all three businesses, like there's this beautiful vision that I have for branding and packaging. I'm like, oh my god, I want it to look this way, I want to have custom this, I want to have this printed this way, I want to emboss this, tags need to look this way. Like there's so much that I want to do with branding, and I mean, it's not that our branding is bad, but I can see what it can be. And it's like, okay, like, do we go ahead right now and we spend all of this money and push all this money into packaging, like something that someone is going to throw away? Because like I know that the majority of you, at least, after you get that, like, you're just throwing away the card, you're throwing away the business card, you're throwing away the thank you card, the tissue paper is like recycling, the box is recycling. If it comes in the mailer, there's no salvage in it because you just cut it up or whatever, you know. I understand that. I still want that when the product gets to you, that it looks fabulous. I want it to be amazing. I want that you have that initial impression, like, wow, this is nice. But but I know realistically that it's not, like, you're not gonna keep it. I don't think you will. So it's like, am I going to spend that much money on something that I know eventually is going to, like, it's not part of the product itself? Yeah, it's not it's part of the complete package, but it is not the product itself that you're wearing or using or that you're gifting or whatever the case may be. So it's like finding the middle ground, pretty much. Is like, okay, so to what extent am I going with this thing? And since it was under created still, even like whenever we sold things, like it was housed on Created by Talia's website. It still is, actually, because obviously I told you guys, like, I'm trying to do things the right way. So it's still under Created by Talia. It's just as a collection. So Kingdom, Created by Talia presents Kingdom Life. But it's still a brand underneath the company, and so it still needs to be done the right way. And man, that thing hit me hard. I won't lie to you guys, that thing hurt me. Oh my goodness, I was like, wow. And it's been 2 years. Like 2 years is a lot of time for something else to happen. And you know, like, when we started the small business support component of Created by Talia, like there would have been a lot of time that we also would spend helping other businesses get started up and stuff like that. And like, I didn't even know when 2 years passed. I was like, wow, Kingdom is 2 already. Like, when did that happen? What? But yeah, Kingdom is 2 years, and now we're going through that portion. So I said all of that, and like that was a lot. That was a huge ramble. But I said all of that to also say that after you have confirmed that the name is not taken and that you will not have any legal problems because you're naming your company something that already exists, please register. Register your business. I still don't think that you necessarily have to trademark immediately, but keep it in the back of your mind that is something that you're gonna have to do very soon, especially if you have the vision of doing it internationally. If you're fine with your business being limited to your country, that's okay. Registration is fine. That helps to make sure that you're protected and that your name is not taken. But if you really want to go the full mile, you need to trademark. It's very important. It's very, very important. So I guess the whole takeaway from this is, number one, make sure that the name that you have is not taken, which is what we did. We made sure that. And then number two, make sure that you register with the appropriate parties, depending on where you are. I'm based in Canada and I'm based in Ontario, so I'm gonna register accordingly. If you're in Barbados, you're gonna register accordingly. If you're in the US, you're gonna register accordingly. However, according to your specific country, you'll make sure that you register that there. Do everything the right way. Do everything the right way. But if you definitely are concerned with your name remaining yours and making sure that it is not taken by any other person, any other business, any other entity, make sure that you go through the trademarking process. It's very, very, very important. With a young business, like a startup, especially if you have not gotten any external investors and you are pouring your own capital in and stuff like that, I understand that funding initially might not permit such an endeavor so quickly, but definitely as soon as you're in a place that you can do that, start to make those steps is important. And then having like defined that portion, making sure that the name aligns. So that brings us back to what we were talking about with names having purpose, names meaning, names showing the purpose of your business. You really want to be able to have a strong identity. I have definitely seen some really unique names. I love seeing unique names, and I'm still able to see okay, that this is what this person does or whatever from that name, or even if it's something that is necessarily self-named or something like that, like the associated slogan, the vision, the mission statement should be strong enough to help me to understand that, hey, this belongs to this category. Yeah, that's pretty much it for today. That's what I'm currently going through. So it's not all bad news in that like it really happened. I've been talking to God the whole day. I haven't done like the serious sit down and spend like hours in prayer kind of thing to get direction as yet, but that will come, of course. But in the process of seeing the changes, and you know what, like, you know what was funny? All of the variants, because there are multiple variants, all the variants of kingdom that I have seen that aren't like full kingdom like apparel, but are very close to it. And I probably should make that clear. Like there's just variants that are very, very close, but it's risky, you know. But anyways, those ones all started this year. They all started in 2022. And it's like, guys, I know you can see that this exists already. But you know what? Maybe they couldn't because of how we had it on the creative. I mean, like, even when we named products, the brand was spelled out, but that's also why it's important to have your Google My Business and all that out, because when it started to search, it would have been a little bit more apparent that, hey, this existed, especially if we had it registered already. Right off the bat, they would have seen, oh, you know what, if the way that we had pulled, created out, started right off the bat with a website as well, that would have helped with things, because now they'll be able to see, hey, this domain is taken, and it will start to raise some red flags. Like, yeah. But it's not all bad news, because I was making a lot of changes to Kingdom anyways, and fortunately, like, in those changes, there was new branding and there was new packaging and all of that. And it's not that we pulled the trigger on it as yet. It's all in like draft mode, and we're going through the approvals and all that stuff. But fortunately, I had not pulled the trigger on any of those things. Bless the Lord. I had not pulled the trigger on those things. And you know what? Like, this brings me to another point, not necessarily related to what we're discussing, but every delay is not a denial. Every delay is not a denial. When I started to go through the process of upgrading the branding for all the companies, so with Legacy, because it was new, it already had its new logo, it had its new website, it had dealt with everything. Like, because we already had made that decision knowing that everything was going to be pulled out, it went to vote the right way. And so in terms of its branding, in terms of its packaging and all of that, brand kit, color scheme, all of that, like, we had that started out right off the bat. And so that was new. For Created, it wasn't a case that we were changing anything drastically. Like, the playfulness of Created still exists, and you see the playfulness in the colors that we have in our logo and stuff like that. But we wanted to take the packaging up another level, especially our hang tags and stuff like that. So there was that component. And then with respect to Kingdom, it was just really trying to solidify and know that we had made that decision to pull it out, to make things concrete. But fortunately, I wasn't able to pull the trigger, and initially it was like, dang, like, oh my goodness, I poured money into all these other different things, and so like I have to catch my hand before I pour money into this portion of the business. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And it was really sad about it, because like, shoot, that means that I just have to continue a little longer with the way that I've been branding things and everything like that. And look at God. Like, if I had pressed the trigger and I had to go through what I went through in finding out all of that information, and then I already had packaging printed, and now what I was going to do it, I'll be like, what? Like, my hard-earned dollar? What? But God. So I'm really glad that we were able to catch that early, and that we were doing the necessary research to make sure that we were doing things the way that it needed to be done, and that we were able to catch it at the time that we were able to catch it. So it's not all bad things, and it just means that we have room to make the brand into something amazing. So I guess today is us formally saying that we're rebranding. How exciting is that? After, like, last week, I wouldn't have told you that I was excited, but I'm excited now. I'm excited now because there's so much possibilities that we can do, and I'm just excited to see what God is going to do, because the ideas come from Him. It's not me. I'm just the vessel being used. But I'm excited. I'm coming off the heels of the collaboration and going into spring with new branding, with a new name and all of that. That's exciting. That's really exciting for me. So yeah, stay tuned. There's a lot that's happening behind the scenes. This podcast is giving you a bit of insight into that. But yeah, that's coming up. So at this point, remember how important it is to make sure that you have a strong business name and make sure that you go through the right channels to do the right things. And yeah, I am so glad that you joined us on this episode. We look forward to sharing more about our process and the things that we're going through, and let us know if this information was useful to you, and if you have any questions, like any specific questions on your business name, or you need any advice or anything, feel free to reach out on our Instagram page. Hit us up. You can hit us up on Creative by Talia as well, because we do deal with small business support on Creative by Talia. Yeah, but it's been good, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you in the next one. The Lord bless you and keep you. I hope you guys have an amazing day, whatever time of the day it is. Have an amazing week. Continue to keep God in the front. Continue to just let Him guide you through everything. And I am so excited to see the testimonies that come out of this entire process of building your legacy. The process of entrepreneurship for me, honestly, has been a true blessing. I am so grateful to God for counting me worthy to go on this journey, and I'm grateful that He's created a means for me to share it with you. So yeah, until the next time, guys, I'm gonna see you. All right, have a great one. Bye.